Good morning, konnichiwa. Whether it's good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, welcome to the webinar. It's about Bushido for today, and I'm going to be speaking about quiet heroes and also Bushido and how the Japanese live their lives. And these happen to be Japanese Americans during World War II who fought for the US Army. So thank you for being here. I welcome all of you, and please put in the comments where you're from. And if you have questions, please add that too. And whether you're doing it now, live, or later, please ask questions or make comments. I would love to hear from you, each one of you, because you are important to me, and I'm doing this as just because I'm very passionate about the Japanese American experience and the Kodo Bushido and how it has permeated the Japanese society. Just coming from, gosh, not even a month ago, I was in Japan and I was able to experience the Japanese hospitality, the sounds, the food, just everything about it. And it's such a clean country. And in a city of over 1 million, I think 1.5 million, I only saw two homeless people, hardly ever, never saw graffiti, didn't see trash on the streets because they pick up after themselves. And the more I speak about it, the more I tell you, the more it becomes more real to me. And every time I go to Japan, is just is more ingrained in me. We'll go to the next slide. There's a picture of me, and our family friend took it to Japan. He was a merchant marine and took it off the family photo. So it was done in Japan, and my mom thought it would be a good idea to bring this to America. But that picture is very old. I'm a baby boomer. So um, it's a picture that I still have, and it came with two matches. I think it's quite comical. I don't know what happened to the matches. But this is me when I was growing up, and we moved to the farm in the country from Portland to the country in Woodland, Washington. And at that time, it took about an hour to get from Woodland to Portland. Now it takes maybe 30 minutes because of the new freeway they put in. But I grew up really not enjoying being a farmer's daughter and working hard, but it taught me a lot and it shaped my character. So I'm thankful for that because that's where that's the situation I grew up in and I couldn't change it. And so growing up, you can we can go to the actually let's share screen now. Um, I grew up in the country and regular high school Japanese, being Japanese was not something that I relished because I was teased and bullied. But I went through school, grade school, high school, and then when I went to college, I took Japanese because I wanted to know what my parents were saying that I couldn't understand. I couldn't, they would always have the secret language, and we figured out a few words like okane means money and takai means high and baka means like maybe not quite all there. So well, I learned a little bit of Japanese, but not enough to really converse. Just words here and there. So when I was in college, I took Japanese for 2 years, and I absolutely loved it. It was hard because I didn't grow up speaking it, but it was. I thought, no, this is a tool where I can understand what my parents were saying actually to each other. It was their secret code. And then after I got married, my mentor who worked at the Tacoma Art Museum told me that I should go to Japan. So my husband and I did that because we didn't have a family at that time. And we did go to Japan. We met our Japanese relatives, and I went to a very, one of the most famous processions in Kyoto, and it's called Jidai Matsuri. And when I went there, there were about 2,000 people all dressed in period attire. And it was so fascinating and so beautiful. Their processions are much different than our parades. In our parades, there's the fanfare, the drums, and the marching band. But in Japan, it's a very solemn event, but it's very beautiful. And when I was there, I saw a woman who was strong and regal, like, oh, look at her. And it was Tomoe Gozen. And she was a female samurai warrior. And I didn't know that there were female samurai warriors. So when you see her picture, you can see that she was just beautiful. She was regal, and I thought, wow, that's really something. And look at when she was when she lived, 1157 to 1247. That means she was 90 years old. And you may have seen her in Naginata, with her Naginata, that's a long sword. You may have seen her in manga or anime. But if you want to think about it, what are people going to say about you 1,000 years from now? What do you want your legacy to be? And she was fearless. They say that she could take down hundreds of men without any effort. She would come out unscathed. So they put her out on the front a lot, but they didn't publicize much of her uh, military deeds because it doesn't make the men look very good. So they just kind of kept her in the background, but her story has lived on for over 1,000 years. And the next thing that we learned when we met our relatives is they gave us this family crest. And I thought, oh, thank you very much. And when I met my father's side of the family, there were so many um, similarities. There was one cousin that just was almost exactly like another one. He was slight in stature. He smoked cigarettes, and they were about the same age, and it was uncanny. And he thought they were very similar. And then we also heard that our famous, we call it turtle, our Sagawa turtle. There was all this laughing, and they're very jovial, happy people. But they did give us this crest, and I thought, oh, that's wonderful. And they gave us the copy of the family tree, and I didn't realize the significance until much later. And so later, family, marriage, and just living life. And after our kids left, I was rear-ended twice in a in an accident. And so I worked my way back. And one of the ways I did was to write a book. And so I researched about the Japanese people in Japan and the culture. And then I found out that the samurai live by a code of ethics known as Bushido. And so I wrote this book. And when I did, and it came on my front door, I just thought, yes, that samurai spirit, it's in me. And so that's what I'm sharing with the world about how the samurai lived their lives and how it can affect your lives in the 21st century. We'll go to the next slide. So this is the Code of Bushido, and I'm happy to send it to you. It's a great guide for you. Actually, I call it, they say sage advice. I say great samurai advice because it has all the Code of Bushido: courage, integrity, benevolence, respect, honesty, honor, and loyalty. And those seven principles, the samurai dedicated their lives and pledged their sacred honor to defend the code. So 7 principles and 7 words. That's the way Japanese do it. And I say, do the right thing all the time. And that's what the samurai do. They live their lives to do the right thing all the time. Go to the next slide. And I'm going to talk about Arthur Iwasaki. And I'm going to read this story about him in just a moment, but I just wanted to share with you that Arthur and my father were lifelong friends. And this is a picture of them before they were just baptized together at the Epworth Methodist Memorial Church in Portland, Oregon. And they were they just were both farmers. Their children and our family were about the same age. Brothers were the same. My older sister, and then I was the same with a younger brother, and then 2 sisters, my sister and her sister, and then another one by next to my 2 younger brothers. So they were just always together, always talked on the phone, traveled together, and they were like lifelong friends, and that doesn't happen very often. So we'll go to the next slide. And this is a picture of Arthur when he received the 2010 Congressional Gold Medal in Washington, D.C. And that's his son over to my left, uh, who accompanied him to Washington, D.C. And I never knew that Uncle Art, we always called him Uncle Art, was a hero until this time when I did some research and researched about him. So next slide. So actually what I'm going to do is read about Arthur Iwasaki, and that was in the email. But he was a close family friend, and growing up, we were friends with them all our lives. We were about the same ages, and even today, both of the families are friends. They both had, well, you can see it right there. Iwasaki was drafted into the U.S. Army on March 17th, 1942, and was stationed at Fort McClellan in Alabama for 2 years. And during that time, this is a very sad thing. He was classified as enemy 4C, enemy aliens. And he said at that time, what he did was sweep cigarettes off the grounds and just relegated to not very good work. And most of the people in the higher up in the US Army did not want the Japanese American. So they formed their own unit. Okay, this action was somewhat perplexing as well as humiliating, and he was literally considered like an alien. How many people want that? So he became part of the replacement unit. They were losing so many soldiers, and because of the high casualty rate, he crossed the Atlantic Ocean, went to France, and then traveled on to Epinal, France. And then he was hit by a shrapnel and his arm and taken to an aid station. He received a Bronze Star and Purple Heart for his courageous act. And then in the middle of the night, he did the surprise attack on the Germans. And while participating the second time, he received his second Purple Heart with oak leaf clusters. He left the U.S. Army in November 1945 as a private first class and returned to Hillsboro, Oregon. And that's where my dad went. And George Washington wrote, "He who wears the Purple Heart has given of his blood in defense of his homeland and shall forever be revered by his fellow countrymen." And so the blood of Uncle Art and those like him proved the loyalty and commitment of the Japanese American people to their nation, the United States of America, because they were thought that they were loyal to Japan, but no, they were loyal. United States of America was their country. So those of Japanese American heritage are considered part of the mainstream America. And the prejudice of World War II seemed far removed from my generation because of the deeds that they did and the way that they paid for us. We owe this to the soldiers of the 100th 442nd and their willingness to demonstrate their commitment and loyalty during the country's time of need. And in the summer of 2010, he went together with his son and daughter. They traveled to France to participate in the celebration at Bruyères. And according to his daughter, Stephanie, it was an emotional experience to visit the battleground of France and meet the people who fought alongside their father. And those people still to this day show their gratitude and loyalty to the soldiers of the 100th 442nd. So in October 2010, that's when he traveled to Washington, D.C. You saw that picture, to receive his medal. Most of the people that, not most, but a lot of them received that medal posthumously, including my uncle on my dad's brother. And so a grateful nation demonstrated their gratitude by presenting this Congressional Gold Medal to those who served in the 100th 442nd in military service. And Uncle Art was one of those who received that honor. So thank you again, Uncle Art. And today our families are still friends. I wanted to show, I just returned from Japan, and her two daughters, Stephanie and Christy, came with me. And so there's a picture of that I'd like to share, that our friendship still continues. There, our friendship still continues. That was in Kyoto, Japan, when we went to the Samurai Museum. So we'll go back up to the video and grab your tissues and watch this video. You will be learn something about what they did.
They were all just young kids back in 1941, into big band music and baseball games. the war broke out and their whole world was turned around, they knew their lives would never be the same. And even as their families were taken off to camps, they volunteered for battle anyway. They believed enough to give this country another chance. They did their part to save the USA. The quiet heroes who made the sacrifice so that future generations could have a better life. Quiet heroes, proud Americans, we never will forget what you have done. They were small in stature, but big on bravery. The stories of their courage became known. Just ask their fellow soldiers about their heroic deeds, and about the ones who never will come home. The quiet heroes who made the sacrifice so the future generations could have a better life. Quiet heroes, proud Americans, we never will forget what you have done. Brothers, sons, and fathers, answer to the call, and we owe a debt of gratitude to you one and all. I grew up around some of these humble, valiant men, and often wondered where their strength came from. 'Cause they never mentioned all the trials that they went through. I never heard them complain to anyone. Quiet heroes who made the sacrifice so that future generations could have a better life. Quiet heroes, proud Americans, we never will forget what you have done. We never will forget what you have done.
So thank you for watching, and I hope you watch it again and share this with others. It's very heartwarming and sad at the same time, because there are very few of those gentlemen, they're in their hundreds now, that are alive today. So if you can go to the next slide. In fact, my aunt's brother never came back. And they did so much, and we as third generation Japanese Americans owe so much to them, because they paved the way so that we wouldn't face the racial prejudice that they did. So I'd like to read the next story about the hero that lived next door across the street. And I'd never read that story before, and someone sent it to me, and I said, I just have to share it. It is so good. And I'll try to make this brief. Is Enoch, which is a very unusual name. Kanaya was my sun-seeking neighbor who plucked ripe tomatoes off his sunny garden on his tree-lined streets in Chicago. He and his family, his wife Carolyn, and their 4 daughters moved into the modest brick home across the street from our family home in the latter 60s. One of those daughters, Barbara, was a petite, vivacious child with a quick laugh who played bongo drums and loved to sing. She was limber enough to do the splits after a few deep stretches and easily fit into our existing all-girl friend group. We thrived on silly conversations, sleepovers, and pranks, and like most children, we did not consider parents three-dimensional beings. We took up the stage. Parents hid behind the curtains. I was too distracted and self-involved to recognize that Mr. Kanaya, who tended to his ripe garden on humid days, or tinkered with electronic equipment as we raced in and out of the rattling screen door, was a hero living quietly across the street. You can move it up, please. That's the family. For me, the Kanaya canon began to unfold through an elementary school lecture and a high school history fair project that required a person with wartime experience, and later, as an adult, through conversation with his family. Enoch H. Kanaya and his 2 siblings grew up in Clackamas, Oregon, where my relatives are, before the family relocated to the bustling city of Portland. Like other children their age, they busied themselves with sports and attended school functions, but after the surprise Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in December of 41, Japanese American communities got swept up in a discriminatory crossfire. In February 1942, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed the executive order which led to the incarceration of 120,000 innocent Japanese Americans during World War II, and caused many civilians to view their neighbors through a suspicious lens. And that included both my parents and my grandparents, aunts and uncles. And it caused many civilians to view neighbors through a suspicious lens. The Kanaya clan, in tandem with thousands of other Japanese American families, were sent to barbed wire. They call them internment camps, but they were incarceration. They were illegally held in barbed wire camps. 20 by 20 room. My father remembers it, and no running water and only a light bulb and a potbelly stove. But he wrote about it, and his memories, he holds no malice. He said it just happened to do, but we made the most of it, and they did. They were amazing. They're amazing examples. So the Kanaya family weathered a strange new world on the outskirts of Hunt, Idaho, called Minidoka, where my dad was. Making the best of unprecedented predicament, the teenage Enoch worked as a truck mechanic for a paltry monthly sum while completing his high school education part-time. You want to go up a bit? And his older brother, who I knew as my friend Barbara's Uncle Jimmy, enlisted in the U.S. Army before Pearl Harbor. And at 19, he was drafted in the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, segregated Japanese American unit, and was sent to the rigorous 16-week infantry replacement training program, where he learned how to shoot. On the massive Aquitania, the 442nd crossed the Atlantic and landed in France. They were ordered to safeguard the Alps that separated France and Italy from invading German troops. And I would like to add at this time that it was Eleanor Roosevelt, the president's wife, who encouraged her husband to let these gentlemen fight. And there were about 30,000 Japanese American in both Hawaii and the States that volunteered to fight for a country that incarcerated them. So they're exemplary citizens, and they are without equal. And they are part of the great generation that Tom Brokaw wrote about, the generation of my parents. They were considered the greatest generation. In Italy, the 442nd successfully pushed the German troops back. After that victory, the soldiers guarded German prisoners of war before returning home, where they received the presidential citation. If you can move it up. But it wasn't until 2011 that this unsung group of segregated soldiers received the Congressional Gold Medal. By then, Mr. Kanaya had raised 4 daughters with his wife, and he traveled the globe. And he tallied up 8 years as a technician, the Admiral Corporation of his hometown. This May, 80 years after he was drafted in the into the Army, he received, now one of the last remaining survivors of the 442nd, received the France's highest order of merit, the National Order of the Legion of Honor, a ceremony in a Chicago church. And I was there to see it. That's the author. Childhood memories like calendar pages swept by a random wind filled my mind as I entered the 135-year-old church for a ceremony that included more than 50 attendees and a cross-section of generations, family, community members, politicians, dignitaries, veterans who kept touch over the span of decades, Consul General of Japan, Jun Yanagi, Consul General of France, Yannick Tagand, were among them. If you want to go up. So here's a picture. I will just that, and you can read the rest of it, but it's just a very heartwarming story. Just that he's alive, and there's so few that are alive now. They're in their hundreds, and um, every day, we lose them a lot, and so the last of them are in the hundreds. And my dad remembers. And this is him receiving his medal. My dad remembers maybe I'll share that at a different time. He remembers what happened during the war and had an amazing memory of what happened. And his mother had cancer and they found hospice for him. He remembered the name of the street. And my dad was really sharp memory. Every day he journaled and talked about the weather, the farmer at heart. And I miss him. He's been gone for about 2 years. He almost made it to 100 and did his thing every day working on plants. So if you want to go to the next slide. So I'd like you to think about the Code of Bushido and how this was exemplified in the soldiers of the 100th 442nd. They did it without complaining. They never tried to seek attention. And when they were overlooked, like in Rome, ordered to go through, not to parade through in the parade that for the American soldiers, they were told not to go, and they were always overlooked and still faced prejudice in the Army. And in fact, after the Army was ended, Senator Inoue, who was a lieutenant at that time, was told that they wouldn't cut his hair because that was Jap hair and they would not cut his hair. But in spite of that, the Japanese just continued to live their lives with the Code of Bushido that was taught to them. It's not like what I shared with people is that it's not like you sit them down and they learn about the Code of Bushido. Their parents and grandparents taught them just by example. And that's how our parents taught us, is that you work hard, you're honest, and you don't slack off, and you do your best. So there's courage, integrity, benevolence, respect, honesty, honor, and loyalty. And I believe that the gentleman, the 30,000 Japanese Americans of the U.S. Army, 142nd, that included the ones from Hawaii and the mainland, exemplified this code. They were modern day samurai warriors because they fought valiantly. They didn't complain. And after some generals saw the way that they fought, they wanted to have them as part of their army. And that's what happened in the MIS when they were decoding and translating the Japanese documents, and because they were not written in code, so they were able to do that. And that's another story. I'll share that too. It's an amazing, because most people don't know about it because they were sworn to secrecy for 50 years. And my two uncles were part of that, so we didn't learn much from them. But I want to just ask you if you have. Oh, this is our picture of we can kind of stop forward to the thing about question and answer. That would be good. All of everything that I've taught, Ikigai, Gambaru, and the Code of Bushido is demonstrated in the Japanese and Japanese American people. So if you have questions, please put them in the comment. I will answer them wherever you're watching this replay, whether it be Facebook or LinkedIn. Put your questions and your comments in the section below. because I feel I would love to share with you, and we could even have a coffee, not coffee, tea chat about the Code of Bushido and how it can affect your life. It can affect your business. It will affect everything about your life if you live according to good morals. Because good morals, do they ever go out of style? I would say no. And in this day and age, would you agree that people are looking for leaders? And leaders that can lead by example, because you want people that, for instance, honesty. You won't want to follow somebody that's dishonest. And so honesty is very, very important in the Japanese culture, as well as all the other ones. But honesty and honor and courage are very important. This is what I love to share with people because it will change your life as it has changed many lives. A side note, I used to be in the work in the prison when I was recovering from traumatic brain injury for over 10 years. And I would share with the women, how can this apply to you? And I would pose the question, if everyone followed the Code of Bushido, where would our society be? Would people be breaking into other people's houses? Would be having riots? Would people be acting unruly? I don't believe so. I believe that we'd have a very peaceful, harmonious life, the way that life is meant to be. It's not meant to be such a struggle and, having to lock your house every day and have a security system on it. And our lives would be easier because it wouldn't cost as much, for one thing. We wouldn't have to pay for so many police and all of that. Just follow the Code of Bushido and your life will be better. And I believe the world will be better. So that is it for now. I want to just gambate kudasai. And that was me when I was um, recovering from traumatic brain injury, reading at a 7th grade level, and not knowing my future. So I fought hard. And if I hadn't have fought hard and given up, I wouldn't be here with you today, nor would I have written the book, nor would I be able to live, shall we say, a normal life. I'd have to be taken care of because I couldn't think very well, couldn't see very well. And I didn't want that. I was too young to just say, okay, that's the way it is. I just did what my parents taught me to do. Don't give up. Never, ever give up, because there's always a way. So there's always a way for you. And I would love to share with you. And also, I'm going to have a complimentary 3-day challenge coming up this summer. We haven't set the date yet, but it's in the works. And Samurai Word, we will have it. So please contact me and go to my website. Let the Samurai be your guide. It's on Amazon, and you can join my Facebook community and also my email list, and you'll get the latest and greatest because I put it on the email. So that is it for now. I want to thank you, every one of you, for watching this, and please comment below, and let's stay in touch, and let's make the samurai community and the way Bushi is warrior, do is the way. So the way of the warrior, make it part of our everyday lives, and then help share that with other people, especially the younger generation, because they're almost well, they do have leaders, but are they being led in the correct way? So I'll let you make that decision and actually compare it with the Code of Bushido. And that's like the guide, because you want that Code of Bushido can be an anchor, in the sea of turmoil, and a guide through the maze of life. So thank you for being here, every one of you, and have a happy 4th of July. We won't be doing this next week because it's a week of celebration, and it's also Tanabata, which is a Japanese festival. So I'll say mata ne. Thank you so much, and please stay in touch. Owari, the end.